What's up? This is Ben, and I'm coming to you with a quick video today. The psychology of skateboarding versus team sports. When I say team sports, I mean the typical ones we think of, I guess, here in America, although it could be other ones around the world. So football, basketball, baseball, cricket, soccer, versus skateboarding. So skateboarding is different from these sports in a lot of ways. Basically, when you skate, skateboarding naturally teaches you, and it's strong in ways that team sports are weak. And what's strong in skateboarding is that it has a very innate, I don't know, it's just built into the system. It's a sort of systemic tendency to teach you to go for it with an attitude of you're about to do this. So I remember a young man that was trying to learn backside board slides on a flat bar, a 12-inch tall flat bar. Okay, so a flat bar is a ground rail that's level. It doesn't go down or up, and it was 12 inches off the ground. And a backside board slide is where you approach the rail, and the rail's behind you as you approach it, and you ollie if you're regular foot, and you land with the rail in between your wheels on the middle of the board. It's a board slide. You're not landing on the axles or the trucks. You're not landing on the nose or the tail. Just the middle of the board. The front edge of your board comes over. You slide across. You come out. That's a board slide, okay? And he was trying to learn it. And the fella, he could ollie up onto things that tall, or taller actually. And he could do 180s, frontside 180s. And he had all the skill that he needed to do the backside board slide. But he was ollieing up and getting this close to landing on the rail, and then he would do everything he could to bail. And basically, he was not going to land with his feet on the board as the board hits the rail. He wasn't going to land on the rail, on the board, on the rail, and put his weight down like that on that. He didn't trust that action of I'm going to land on my board on the rail. And he didn't have that attitude of I'm going to do this, and so he was trying to learn the trick without that attitude. And so bailing out at that point and keeping from putting your weight on the board on the rail, he wound up getting hurt. He would fall forward, get tripped up, and hit the edge of the rail, and bad things were happening. And it actually would have been a lot safer for him to just go for the trick. He wouldn't necessarily have landed it every try, but the falls are actually nowhere near as bad as what he was going through. And he's never going to land the trick unless he actually goes for it. And this idea of, really going for it, or, skaters say commit. You got to commit a lot. It's normal in skateboarding. This is just normal everyday skater life. There are tons of tricks and tricks in general where it's about commitment. It's not always about commitment. Sometimes the person is committed and they're just not flicking it right, or they're doing something. It's a technical skill thing. But a lot of tricks, it's not so much a technical skill thing as it's just I'm going to go for it. And in some cases, you can only learn the technical skill when you go for it really and see where you're messing up, because you'll never see what you're doing wrong unless you actually try to do it and try to complete the thing. Whether it's ollieing downstairs, or rolling into a ramp is one, or just dropping into a ramp. Those are super easy actually, but they're all about commitment. And as long as you truly commit to them, you'll be fine. But if you don't commit to them, you get hurt really bad. I don't know how many kids I've seen try to learn drop-ins without committing to drop-ins. So that's the thing about skating. It teaches you this sort of can-do attitude of I'm about to do this, and it teaches you this in spite of the fact that you've fallen and you've messed up and you've tried it a bajillion times, 100 times, and it still doesn't work out. So it's normal for skaters to go at something and fail 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 and get back up and go at it like they're about to do it. And the average non-skater person, they see that and they think, I can't do that. That's too hard. They see you mess up one time and they think, wow, that's impossible. And for the skater, you just don't have that mindset. You don't think, wow, that's impossible. You think, I'm about to do this. I just fell 100 times. This hurts so bad. I'm about to do this. That's just normal for a skater. That's just day-to-day existence. And sometimes that creates sort of a communication barrier between skaters and people that don't skate. But what Rodney Mullen pointed out is that that's very similar to the process for an inventor. And as someone who is in the process of invention, I would say that's true. When you are inventing something, you don't really know if it's possible. You don't really know. Because if you knew it was possible, that would mean that you've already invented it. You're trying to do something new that's never been done before. You don't really know if it can be done. And you can't judge based on what other people have done or what other people normally do. You're trying to do something new. And so that's a weird attitude for a lot of people. But for the skater, that's actually something we're more accustomed to because of skateboarding. And I thought about it. I was like, maybe that's why, invention and creative process, was appealing to me. Maybe it was because of a background in skateboarding. I don't know. But, you start out when you're inventing something with ideas, and then most of those ideas are bad about how to do whatever that you're trying to do. A few of those ideas break out of your head and move to the paper or drawing, where you give it some sort of physical reality. And then on paper, most of them are bad. So the few that make it to paper, most of those are bad. They don't make it. They don't look good on paper. And then there's a few that actually look good on paper, and they go to you're super excited. You think you've got it. You build a physical prototype, and then most of those don't work out. So that's a very similar process to skateboarding. It's I failed and 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 I failed. I'm so upset. I'm about to do this. I pick it up. I pick myself up and I go at this like about to do this. About to do this. About to do this. Invention and skateboarding, that's a strong link or similarity between the two. Because you go and you finally build that prototype and you think this is the one, and then you've been hastily, excitedly building it, and then you realize, like, oh, this is a terrible idea. It dawns on you. It's very upsetting. But no one ever invented anything thinking that, it can't be done. And we're surrounded with inventions that, at one point didn't exist. And no one knew if they were possible until someone did it. So that's one of the main differences between skateboarding and, I guess we'd say, competitive team sports, whether it's cricket, soccer, football, or baseball, or basketball. Skateboarding has a tendency to teach you to go for things that you are not really sure are possible, and to go for them like you're about to do them. Team sports have a sad tendency to kind of teach you to hold other people down. And I've heard more than one teenager say, that's what life is like. It's like sports. And you learn about being competitive, about getting ahead of other people. And, I mean, that's clearly not a very healthy attitude, really. I mean, holding other people down is what everything's about. It's about me getting the apple versus you. And that's the way team sports are set up, and they have that tendency to teach you that. And that's not a very healthy thing. It flows over into the coaching. And so that's one of the problems we have a lot of times in the way the other kids coach each other and in the way the parents coach the kids. There's a lot of attempts to hold people down. Coaches try to tell kids they're terrible. Kids tell each other they're terrible. Kids tell themselves they're terrible. I saw one young man, he'd come out there and he was playing volleyball. He's 13, and he would serve the ball and mess up the serve. One mistake. The other team rotate, and he would just, why can't I do it? I'm terrible. I could do it all the time, but I can't do it anymore. It's like, hey, kid, you messed up one time. And from the skater mindset, I'm like, it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around his mindset. Like, I miss a lot of tricks, like I just go for them anyways. And eventually you get them where they're easy. And then if you land it every time, it's boring and you want to move on to something that you miss most of the time, That's normal for skaters. But for this kid, and in especially I see it with middle school kids, they just want to hold each other down. They want to hold themselves down. I remember we had a ultimate frisbee game with the middle school kids. It's always better with middle school kids, and I did 4 bad passes in a row. But I, of course, being in the skater mindset, I was going for like really difficult passes that would have been awesome if I achieved them. And everyone was just like, all the other kids, don't let Ben have the frisbee anymore. He's a terrible passer, and that was their attitude. And my attitude was just like, I'm about to do this. Every time I could, I'd grab it. And eventually, they got better at catching, because on the 5th one, we completed. And then we started completing all these amazing passes. And we literally started wearing out the other team. We came from behind, and it just, there is a need for that attitude of, I'm about to do this. I don't know how many times things have gone wrong. I'm about to do this. And team sports do have that tendency to teach you to hold other people down. Now, I don't want to give team sports a bad rap in that way. I don't think they have to be that way. I think they just tend to be that way. It can flow into that very easily, although it's not the way it should be. And there's a good side to competition too. And while we're here, skateboarding can become bad too. I mean, obviously, all this emphasis on freedom, and I'm about to do this, can flow into just being a lawbreaker. That's the similar the mindset of the inventor and the creative and the entrepreneur and the business professional and the world leader and the world changer is not a lot different from the mindset of the criminal. So, and skateboarding taps into that mindset, and it can go either way. And team sports tap into a mindset of competition, and it can become unhealthy, and it can become healthy. And here's the best way I can talk about what's unhealthy about it and what's healthy about it. In terms of Dragon Ball Z, I don't know if you watch Dragon Ball Z, but for those of you out there who have, it'll be, this will be a good metaphor for you. But on Dragon Ball Z, they're always doing these warrior battles. And the 2 main different mindsets that they have on the show is Goku and Vegeta. And they really have different approaches to fighting and combat and competitiveness in battle. Vegeta gets excited when his opponent is weaker than he is, and he's about to just run all over him with a monster win, and it's just about to be him dominating the day. Goku gets most excited when his opponent is stronger than he is. That's when Goku's most excited. So that's what Vegeta is not excited. Goku's most excited. And Goku is really usually bored when his opponent is weaker than he is. So that's typical of Dragon Ball Z battles just all throughout the show. And that's an interesting mindset. That's an interesting way of expressing this competitiveness. Goku's attitude is obviously a better attitude towards competitive sports and competitiveness in general. Whereas Vegeta wants to win. He desires winning. Goku desires a challenge. He wants to be challenged. Of course, he wants to defeat the challenge, but what he really desires is to truly be challenged, to truly compete. They even put it at the end of Talladega Nights, right? The French guy that Ricky Bobby has to defeat in the end, he just wants a challenge. It's not so much about who wins. He just wants 2 people to go at it with all they've got. And that's what's more important about competition than necessarily who wins the competition. And if you desire winning, then you become a Vegeta. You become someone who wants your opponent to be as weak as possible and have these easy wins. You want to win by a lot of points every time. But if you're a Goku, then you want to face difficult opponents. You want to push yourself to new levels of playing better and more awesome than you ever had before. And just being incredibly challenged. And you're okay with losing as long as you gave it your all and your opponent gave it your all. That's the point. And that's a healthy attitude towards competitive sports. And in that sense, it does become more similar to skateboarding. It's more about, let's go for it. Let's see if I can do something that's way more difficult than me. And that's an attitude that skaters have a lot. we get bored with tricks once we master them. There's a bajillion tricks I could do and land every time, and people would be amazed. But like, I don't want to do those tricks. I want to do something that excites me, that's difficult for me, that's fun. Where I'm going like raw. Let's do something. I want to blast through that barrier. And that's that Goku attitude. That's a skater attitude. So the motivation to win and just desiring just winning definitely creates all kinds of evil motivations. It makes you want your opponent to play you poorly. So you'll bully your opponent, or you'll try to weaken them outside of the game somehow, because you don't want them to give you a real challenge because you want to win easily. But that's not healthy. That's a waste of everyone's time. That's boring. Who cares about you winning? What's interesting is when there's a competition where two people go at it. That's what's interesting. Where you want to be challenged, not necessarily win. And of course, the desire to win versus the desire to be challenged, the desire to win will, of course, create a desire to cheat. A desire to cheat in any way possible. A desire to fudge the rules, to hope the ref didn't see it, etc., etc., etc. But a desire to be challenged won't go that way at all. On Dragon Ball Z, Goku would want his enemy to be rested up before he battled them, to be at their best. And he would even do things to help them so that he could give them the best possible challenge. Anyway, there's a need for positivity in sports, whether it's skateboarding or team sports. We need to go out at it with an attitude, I'm about to do this, and that will overflow into other things we do. So I just want to talk a little bit about that psychology. And as far as the theology behind this goes, there is an element of faith when you want your situation to be difficult and bigger than you are, and you're willing to face that and go for it. There's an element of faith, a belief that God's in control. Let's go for it. Whereas the desire to just win at any cost and to cheat and break moral boundaries, there's not a lot of faith in God there. There's not a lot of belief that there's an ultimate being who oversees everything. As soon as you're cheating and doing evil things to win and get ahead, you're definitely afraid of what might happen. And fear is the opposite of faith. The Bible says that perfect love drives out all fear. So if we truly believe, in God and that He loves us, then we're not going to be so worried about what's going to happen. Oh no, what might happen? Rather we'll go at this and take advantage of this opportunity to be challenged, to do something difficult, and at least go at it with all our heart. Okay? So that being said, I hope I didn't run too long. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I just say Jesus loves you and makes sense to you.